when you prepare to have a child, you don't prepare for all the complexities that may go along with it. And, I wasn't prepared for my daughter to have seizures, and I wasn't prepared for adaptive equipment. But, I do have that underlying understanding of what she does need. But until you're a mother trying to figure out what she needs and what the best thing is for her, nothing can prepare you for that. My daughter, she's 3.5, and she just started her preschool, and she has an IEP, or an individualized education plan. And for her, I was really nervous because I was on the other side of a meeting where I'm not the teacher and I'm the parent and I'm caring about my child. And I was worried that I was going to hear, she's not doing this, she's not meeting this. And her teachers presented such a beautiful, wonderful representation of what she can do and what she is doing. And for me, I think that's also empowered me as a teacher to make sure that I do that for my students and their parents, so that, it's not just what they're not doing, it's what they are. When she was born, I think I had expectations set by society and myself that I was, I had this daughter, and, she was going to do all these things. And I pictured us getting our nails done. And, I pictured all these ridiculous things that's not what's important to me anymore. Now I just want her to really, progress, but I want her to be happy. And that's something that, like, someone once said to me, the things that bother me aren't bothering her. She doesn't really know that, like, she's struggling. She just knows she's happy. And I think for me, that was a very big perspective change. Because
I don't know, like, how when you were growing up, like, you don't want to become your parents in a way, or like, oh, I'm gonna do this way differently and such. And like, the older we get, the more we turn into our parents. And it's like, oh no, like what? Like we weren't supposed to do this, and now we're like here. And it's like, oh no.
yeah, I think as we get older, we kind of understand some of the decisions our parents made,
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't to torture us or punish us. It was really looking out for our best interests. So
Mm-hmm.
it's funny. I'll never do that. And then, you become an adult and you're like, I just did that.
Yeah, like, I think it's easy to think of it without the circumstances, but
It was really difficult, honestly, because I felt like we didn't belong anywhere for a while. Like, I felt like, what do we do? Where do we get information? And, when she was misdiagnosed, I was like, okay, now what? And when we finally did get her diagnosis, and her neurologist, like, very gently gave me the information, she was like, listen, like, here is a group. They're on Facebook. There's not many people out there, but she was like, they are there. And I reached out that night, and I went to sleep, woke up. I had hundreds of messages from all the people in the Jordan's group across the world.
like just being alive for 30 years with disability. I think like people are like interested about it, but in the grand scheme of things, they're just gonna forget after 5 minutes. So you can like literally make up a disease, and they will just like it's a rare disease. So like they're not gonna like Google it or anything. So like you can make up the rare disease and be like, oh, he was born on Mount Everest, and like they caused it. They're gonna
Yeah,
they're gonna be fascinated by it, but like in an hour they're gonna just totally forget about it anyway. So you kind of can. People are interested, sure, but like they're gonna forget about it. So like really up to you if you really want to dive into that. Like I know it kind of like I know like I'm a disability advocate, but I'm like more of a realistic disability advocate. Because some people get to like, oh, I have this disease, I have to shout it to the world, and I'm like, I think most people don't really care too much. I think it's more like, hey, the expert, just show who you are as a
hmm,
person. Like you're Michelle, like you're, I don't know, you like, I'm sure you hate Cocomelon because
I mean,
for obvious reasons. Like, but yeah, like you're still a person. Like you don't say like, I'm a rare disease mom. Like you're Michelle. You're a woman. You're a mom. You're just more than
right.
that. And I think people that get lost in that. It's like you have yourself. Like you don't want to limit yourself to it. So I
I
think just
agree.
hello, welcome to my podcast, to my friend Joe Suits. I am Joe Suits. I'll be giving a mic to Michelle. Michelle is a special education teacher and a rare disease mom. She has a son and a daughter. One has Jordan syndrome, which is characterized by intellectual disability and severe developmental delay, and the other one is basically normal. So my question to you is, are you normal?
Um, is anyone?
I'm
I
pretty
guess
normal,
that's a
I
loaded
think.
question. I don't know. I think that, I think we expect ourselves to be like a typical person, and then things happen, and, your life is anything but that. And I think that's what kind of makes life cool, is that the unexpected happens and you figure it out.
I mean, yeah, having a rare disease child is something you really don't wish on anyone because you obviously know how hard it is, and just being a rare disease child to adult, we know how hard it is inflicted on our life. But let's start with. So I have here you studied to be a special education teacher. So was that before or after your daughter was born?
So I actually always wanted to be a teacher, and college I was in school for secondary education English, and when I was hired I decided to also go for my master's in special ed. And ironically, I did not start actually teaching special education until 2020, which was the year COVID hit and the year that my daughter was
Mm,
born. And I just feel like sometimes in life things happen at the same time, and they happen for a reason, in a sense, that not only is my expertise in special education helping me be a better teacher, but also a better mom.
I mean, I'm guessing your degree in special education teaching kind of prepared you, but it really didn't prepare you enough for being a special needs mom.
No, I don't think anything can really prepare you for that, because I don't think that, when you prepare to have a child, you don't prepare for all the complexities that may go along with it. And, I wasn't prepared for my daughter to have seizures, and I wasn't prepared for adaptive equipment. But, I do have that underlying understanding of what she does need. But until you're a mother trying to figure out what she needs and what the best thing is for her, nothing can prepare you for that.
Yeah, so like, what do they teach you as a special education teacher? Because just from my experience, I guess like the biggest thing is kind of like listening and like patience is like the two biggest things you need to thrive in that field.
Yeah, I mean, they teach you, how to differentiate instruction and how to really understand that every learner is different. And I think
Mm.
that, you know, that does play into life, because I have two children, one who is typical and then, one who isn't. And I think that I've learned that I do have to differentiate my parenting, and I have to figure out what works best for each child. And my husband and I have to kind of figure out what works better for us, for both of us as individual people and as parents together.
It must be hard just because I was raised in like a special needs classroom, and like you were talking about, like everyone child needs are different, and it must be hard to be one person trying to cater to, let's say, 10, 15 kids because everyone has a different like levels of intellectual
Hmm.
disabilities and like different ways to like be taught like how, and then it almost like a really almost impossible challenge to like teach a class because everyone has such unique, even if it's half and half, it's such a unique like way to talk to them basically.
Yeah, I think that you just have to get to know each child and what their needs are, what their strengths are. And something that I always focus on with not only my students, but also my kids, are really their strengths, because that's what helps motivate a child, is knowing what they're good at and knowing what makes them happy and what helps them the best. And, my daughter, she's 3.5, and she just started her preschool, and she has an IEP, or an individualized education plan. And for her, I was really nervous because I was on the other side of a meeting where I'm not the teacher and I'm the parent and I'm hearing about my child.
Mm.
And I was worried that I was going to hear, she's not doing this, she's not meeting this. And her teachers presented such a beautiful, wonderful representation of what she can do and what she is doing. And for me, I think that's also empowered me as a teacher to make sure that I do that for my students and their parents, so that, it's not just what they're not doing, it's what they are.
So are you saying that you're still a teacher now that you teach another class while your daughter's in a different class being taught by a different teacher?
So I have students in my school that I service, meaning I go into their like main subject classes like math, science, social studies, and language arts, and I support them as per their IEP and what their accommodations or modifications need to be made. And then I have a class separate with those children where we focus on skills to help them do better in those classes. So it really helps me see their strengths and things that they need to work on, throughout their school day.
So yeah, it seems a very hands-on, involved process. So like you say, like you go with each student. So how long did that program last to like I guess to the end of the grade of whatever the school offered, like fifth grade or eighth grade?
So I actually have middle school students and they're in school with me from sixth through eighth grade. So typically in my school setting, you actually stay with the same children from sixth through eighth. So it's a really unique setup and it's awesome because you really do get to know the kids and follow them and you get to see their growth for 3 years. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of amazing to see that.
Just like a personal opinion, they take kids all together, and just kudos to everyone that did want to work with them. But like, how do you? It is also difficult at that time because they're going through like all the like hormonal changes, and like I know like sometimes you deal with like people that you deal with kids that like can't speak properly, or they don't know how to like present themselves, and you have to like look at their body language and like the way they look at you and stuff. So like it is a really difficult challenge, and that mindset just to be they're going through so much change within their body that they can't express.
I think that when you become a teacher, especially in middle school, you have to be a certain level of like, I can do anything because
Hmm.
you never know what you're going to get with any child, whether they are a typical learner or if they need differentiated instruction. All children will throw a curveball at you. So nothing surprises me ever. So I don't know how to answer that because I feel like I kind of expect it. I expect the challenges of the day to day. And I think that's just kind of when you become a teacher, like it comes with the territory.
Yeah, it seems like you're prepared for it. So now the question is like, will you be in your daughter's life in the teaching stages, or do you want to have a separate, again, life, where like you have your home life with her, and then you have like the teaching life, but you don't want to be like I know like part of you will want to be associated with it, but like do you want to not be it so you can kind of have like a little break, for example, and maybe her interaction with someone else might create a different moment than maybe wouldn't have happened with you.
Yeah, I think that, as a mom and a teacher, your kind of identity kind of molds together. I mean, I feel like I'm always trying to do that, but I think that's a really good question because, you know, especially for my daughter, she's always constantly getting therapy and instruction at her school that when she's home, I don't want to constantly drill it in, whereas it is important, but I do want to just be a mom sometimes. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's important too, that it's not all about, her deficits and trying to, you know, meet, fill in those gaps. It's just about being her mom and loving her and having time with her. And like you said, moments that, I can share with her.
Yeah, the difficult like I don't have kids, I can't understand like the emotional attachment that you have towards a child, and like you want to like protect them and stuff. So yeah, it's difficult to the I guess it'd be an independent opinion on it because obviously different when you're a parent, and you obviously made that clear. So yeah, it's like I'm trying to think of a question to ask. How is your daughter been progressing there? Like, I guess the question is, what is your expectations of her?
When she was born, I think I had expectations set by society and myself that I was, I had this daughter and she was going to do all these things and I pictured us getting our nails done and I pictured all these ridiculous things that's not what's important to me anymore. Now I just want her to really, progress, but I want her to be happy. And that's something that like someone once said to me, the things that bother me aren't bothering her. She doesn't really know that like she's struggling. She just knows she's happy. And I think for me that was a very big perspective change because, I'm always like, is she happy? Is her life good? And it is. I mean, she is beyond happy. She's loved. She's given everything she needs. Her brother loves her. He And I'm starting to notice that she's 3.5 and he's 6, and they're starting to play. And it's not the kind of play I pictured for my children, but it's different, but it's still beautiful, and it's still amazing to see how you can adapt and how they can adapt together and figure out like how to, be siblings and almost do like typical fighting. Like they were fighting over a Star Wars toy the other day, and she grabbed it back from him, and I was like, "Go, Hailey!" And I think typically I probably wouldn't be like, don't do that, but she's asserting herself without words, and I think that's really important. So I think that's a really big skill that I'm seeing from her lately is that she's asserting herself, even though she's nonverbal. She is verbal in her own way.
That's interesting too. I guess it's to be like a bystander of just to see what. I mean, I think it's really with any kid, just kind of see what their mind is doing. Like, I don't know.
Right.
Like, I'm sure you have the same feeling. Like, you created like this mini me person, and you're just like
Right.
watching it do its thing, and it's like crazy. I guess I think of it with like pets too. Like, they just have their own mind, and they can like do what anything they want. It's kind of cool to just watch, right?
Yeah, it's just like it's this crazy thing that my son and I, for example, he is very stubborn, and you know excuse me, we butt heads a lot. But my husband always says, because we're the same person. He's like, you and my son Noah, you're the same person. And that's why it's just so funny because I get so frustrated. I'm like, I'm getting frustrated with myself because he is me.
Oh
So
no.
it's funny.
Yeah, so you kind of have the taste of your own medicine of what your husband did with.
Yeah. And my mom always said, like, one day you're going to have a kid just like you. And here I am. And here's my son.
Mm,
He is
karma came to
literally me.
bite you.
Yeah. In the best way possible. But it's
Yeah.
just funny because we're very similar.
Yeah, that's kind of the crazy part. Like, it's, like, I don't know, like, how when you were growing up, like, you don't want to become your parents in a way, or like, oh, I'm gonna do this way differently and such. And like, the older we get, the more we turn into our parents, and it's like, oh no, like what? Like, we weren't supposed to do this, and now we're like here. And it's like, oh no.
Yeah, I think as we get older, we kind of understand some of the decisions our parents made
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't to torture us or punish us. It was really looking out for our best interests. So
Mm-hmm.
it's funny. Like, I'll never do that. And then, you become an adult and you're like, I just did that.
Yeah, like, I think it's easy to think of it without the circumstances, but now the circumstance, I get like another like thing is like, oh, like I'll never have my kid on their iPad and such, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, I think you want them on the iPad all the time, so you get to like have a 10-minute break, like the exhaust
Yeah,
thing, like the circumstances really what changes things. Yeah,
right.
yeah, I don't know. I don't like the idea of turning into a parent, but like I am, like I'll think like words or phrases or like do something and it's like, like this is not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you bring up the iPad because I was one of those people. I was like, oh, they're never going to be on the iPad. Literally, I like every night we make sure it's charged for the next day. I'm like, it has to have 100% battery life because what's tomorrow going to bring? So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is funny because, circumstances change a lot of things for people.
Well, since we're on the topic of iPads, I think your opinion weighs more than I do. But like I don't know, iPads is kind of a weird thing. It's like you are like one conversation is like, oh, it's like ruining kids and like attention span and such, but at the same time, iPad gives you so much knowledge and like so many, it like develops you, I think, more, getting allowed to explore like I don't know, ladybugs or like they can like Google it and like watch videos and it's amazing. So like, how is Jordan dealing with an iPad? Because I know like a lot of little kids are doing iPads like at such a young age now. So like, how is Jordan interacting with like iPads or like technology?
Yeah, I mean, so I know the whole argument that iPads can be detrimental,
Mm-hmm.
impede, social interactions, but I think COVID kind of changed the landscape of technology in so many ways, and just that's what they're used to. But I also think it is a powerful tool because like my daughter, you know She struggles with, a lot, and sometimes the iPad is very soothing for her. And, I think people have said to me, like, oh, I feel like you rely on the iPad too much for her. Or, oh, she's not sleeping, you put the iPad on. Is that such a good idea? Yeah. When she can't sleep or when she's like screaming and can't, like calm herself, and we put on Cocomelon, her favorite show, as soon as that comes on, she's happy. Like, we do what we have to for her. And for my son, we limit screen time as well, but it's also a calming sense of, comfort for kids at times. And I think if you use it appropriately and you let your kids use it appropriately, it's fine. It doesn't have to be this like enemy. It doesn't have to be this thing that's seen as this thing that's like, dangerous. I just think you need to know how to teach your kids to use it wisely.
I mean, we also should add the argument that it's for yourself too. Like you're going through a stressful time, and you need some time. Like sometimes there's not a solution, or you don't want to like be patient with the person. Like you just want to like throw them the iPad and like walk away like that. Like we were talking earlier about circumstances. Like sometimes you don't have. You're just tired of life, and like you just need a break, and the iPad is there. Like you might as well use it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, for me, as, an adult, as a mom who was trying to navigate this unknown, rare world, I found a community online. And, my phone became something that connected me to people I never would have connected to. Like we're talking today,
Hell yeah.
would person? Probably not, just because of, distance, although you're from New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
the best
we're
area.
like a train right away.
But I think that we live in a big world, and the internet has served as this really amazing place for people to connect and find comfort in communities that they never would have otherwise.
I'm gonna go back a little bit in time because you were talking about how like you were expecting your daughter to like paint your nails and stuff. I do know from research that you actually decorated her room with ballerinas, and you were thinking like
Yeah,
you're gonna go to recitals and like you're gonna watch her perform, and obviously a lot had changed. So yeah, so would you say like your expectations are lower, or did it have different expectations, or is it kind of going with the flow and you're not only because I do know that Jordan, there's only like 200, less than 200 in the world, so there's not a huge like community of like a history of because I mean I don't know how many people live past. I do know one. I did interview a sister. I think you know her, Alexi.
yes,
Is it Alexi or Alexa?
Lexi, yeah.
Yeah, she's super awesome. So I know she had her brother had Jordan, and he died earlier. So I don't know if that's just a normal thing, or he just happened to pass away quicker than most. But like, do you have any plans with her, or is it more like you're going with the flow and just hoping for the best?
I think that like I decorated her room with ballerinas. I expected her, to dance, but I think that question is very loaded because I also don't know if she was a typical kid, would she want to dance? So, you know, the other side of it is I do have very high expectations for her, and
Okay,
this
I like
weekend
it.
actually, yeah, this weekend she is playing baseball, and I am
Mm,
beyond excited. I reached out to someone in my town, and they have a program. It's an inclusive program, and I described Hailey. I said, she'll be in a wheelchair eventually, but right now she's in her stroller. Would she be able to participate? And they're like, absolutely. And I just think that it's amazing that I can still maintain expectations, high expectations for her, and just find ways to make accommodations or modify things so that she can be a part of the world. And so I think that I love your question because I think that I did have certain expectations. They shifted
mhm.
a little bit, but they're still there and they're still high. And she's going to do it all. So
I
I'm
mean,
excited to see.
she might not be a ballerina in what everyone thinks of a ballerina, but you can just buy a ballerina suit from Amazon for like $20, and you can do your little recital in
Yeah,
your living room. Like,
she needs to hear
don't let your dreams die.
it. And you know what? If she doesn't want to do it, she doesn't have to. And I want her to tell me, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. I want to do that. And those are my expectations, that she's going to be able to tell me like what she, what she expects and what she wants. And I know she's going to do it all. So I'm excited for her future.
Yeah, so I have here that you had kind of a lot of misdiagnosis and scrambling along the way. You were Googling people to try to find people like your daughter. You got misdiagnosed with achondroplasia, however you say that
Yeah.
word, and dwarfism. You were having seizures, and I know you got medicine to treat the seizures, and you had a hard time gaining weight. So fast forward to now, she has Jordan syndrome. So like, how was it like finding your people, basically?
It was really difficult, honestly, because I felt like we didn't belong anywhere for a while. Like I felt like, what do we do? Where do we get information? And, when she was misdiagnosed, I was like, okay, now what? And when we finally did get her diagnosis and her neurologist like very gently gave me the information, she was like, listen, like here is a group. They're on Facebook. There's not many people out there, but she was like, they are there. And I reached out that night and I went to sleep, woke up. I had hundreds of messages from all the people in the Jordan's group across the world.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was like, wow, like I found my people and like we're not alone. Maybe there's not someone that's like 2 minutes from me dealing with the same thing or trying to navigate the same path as us, but like they get it and they can help us. So I think that it was really difficult, but like once we found our community, it was a good jumping off point for us to then continue to expand our community to the rare disease world, or people with
Mm-hmm.
disabilities in general, because we all kind of need to figure out like how to make the world more inclusive and find ways to you know be a community together.
Yeah, I do know how important it is to have that community, to find a community when you're feeling like you're basically alone in this huge world. And to be honest, most people would never understand a rare disease person or parent or caregiver or anything that's associated with rare disease. And like understandable, like most people don't deal with it, so why would they ever even know about it? But it's cool to have. It's like it's weird, like it is niche and kind of large. If you like, the more you dive into it, it's pretty large. Like there's
Yeah.
hundreds and thousands of people, and like their family, then that's all affected and like wants to work together. So yeah, it's awesome to hear that it's Jordan syndrome group, I guess you would call it, that they were all wanting to help each other. Because me interacting with a lot of other disabled groups, there are some communities that don't do anything together. They're just like around, but they don't group together at all. And they're just like, oh, we're just here, we're just existing, but they don't do anything. So it's awesome to see a close knit group. And just, I know you work with Jordan Guardians. Is it Guardian Angels or just Guardians?
Yeah, Jordan's guardian angel.
Yeah, so it's cool that they like bring everyone together and everyone seems to be a close knit family. So like I know I read in an article that you went on a trip to Washington D.C. and you ran into another family that had Jordan syndrome that you met a couple of months
Yeah.
ago, and you were just like, "What in the world is happening here?"
Yeah. So last summer we had a conference, and that was the first time I met the community. Like I met people that I had spoken to online for two
Mm-hmm.
years and I met them, and it was an experience that I cannot even explain because it was totally amazing to, just kind of be in a room and not have to like explain like this is Hailey, this is what she's dealing with. Like people just got it, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes after eating she vomits, and people just kind of helped me there, and it was just like, okay, like no worries. Uh, and then a family I had met, we were in DC visiting my brother-in-law, and we're walking down the street, and this family comes out of Panera, out of all places, and they were like, hi. And I was like, are you kidding? Of all people, of all places. So that was like amazing because it just shows you like how, the world is big, but it's really not that big when you community.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I have a similar story that well, I met someone. My disease a little bigger at 800 people, but I mean,
Mhm.
it is bigger, but it's like in the world where there's like 6 billion people is really like not big. And then considering the US, like there's only 200 of us. Anyway, so I went on a trip to the Bahamas and we met someone there with my disease too. And it's like, what in the world? Like the chances of you walking past someone with your what our rare
Right.
disease is insane.
Was that recently?
Oh no, there was like five. Damn, I'm old now, like 10 years ago now, and it was just like, what in the world is happening here? Like I don't. Yeah, there's this insane. It's kind of like you feel alone, but like at the same time, it's almost like you don't. I don't know. It's kind of a weird, I guess, mind fuck in a way. Like, it,
Yeah, sometimes it feels like things are maybe meant to be. Like it's just somehow the universe kind of brings you a moment that's like a moment, but it's huge. Like it's just an amazing thing to experience something like that, I think.
I mean, I'm a little bit like on the other side. That like I know like a lot of people love the community and stuff, but like I'm on the opposite end where I actually don't blend. I don't go to like the disability like groups and stuff because I don't feel like it helps me as much. And but I do understand like some people really just want that community and that help, and I think it is important that they do. And kudos to those people that really take the time to like invite everyone to do it and like actually like accommodate everyone because like I just doing research on you like dealing with Jordan syndrome is a lot. Like you have an article. I think it was the article when you were going to Washington D.C. or you were going somewhere, and then you was like you were caring about if you have all the supplies for them and all that. So that's one compartment. But then you also have all the stresses in your head, all the baggage that you have in your head, of like all the worries that you have. Like when you go to a hotel, like people got judge you or stuff. Like you were writing like, oh, like the guy at the hotel asked you like, hey, like how old is your daughter? And you just said 2 or whatever. And then you were like, is he judging me? Like, does he know that she's too young for his age and such? And such. So like, do you think your mindset had changed more as in terms of like, I guess people not caring as much, or you just more like accepting the situation and you always have this, I guess, small fear in the back of your head, if that makes sense?
Think that it's the latter. I'll always kind of have that fear,
Mm-hmm.
but also at the same time, like it's situational. Today, for instance, I went to Home Depot, random. I'm not handy, don't. Oh, but I went to Home Depot. I took Hailey, and there was a really nice, cashier, and she was talking to us, and she's like, "Oh, is that your only child? How old is she?" And I was like, "Oh, she's 3.5." And she showed me her daughter who's 3.5, and like it's a very obvious difference in
Mm-hmm.
how Hailey, her size, and she looks younger. So I felt almost compelled to be like, yeah, she's small for her age. And then I was like, she actually has a rare disease. And I just kind of like I felt comfortable in that moment just to share it. And I don't know why. But then there's times where I'm just like, yeah, she's young, and I just feel like I have to explain, her to everyone. And it's not their business. But I think that there is that fear that like, I don't know, do I have to? Or like, does it not matter? I don't know. That's something I'm still navigating as a parent.
I mean, well, like just being alive for 30 years with disability, I think like people are like interested about it, but in the grand scheme of things, they're just gonna forget after 5 minutes. So you can like literally make up a disease, and they will just like it's a rare disease. So like they're not gonna like Google it or anything. So like you can make up the rare disease and be like, oh, he was born on Mount Everest, and like they caused it. Like they're gonna
Yeah.
they're gonna be fascinated by it, but like in an hour they're gonna just totally forget about it anyway. So you kind of can like if people are interested, sure, but like they're gonna forget about it. So like really up to you if you really want to dive into that. Like I know it's kind of the disability community kind of annoyed by it because your disability is always a topic of conversation where it's
Hmm.
kind of like seems invasive because like it's your like personal life. Like I don't ask you like let's say a fat person like, oh, do you have diabetes? Like you don't ask that, or like how much do you weigh? Like you don't ask that. So they kind of
Right.
like you don't do that in the disability community. But I I think at the same time the disability community gets a little too upset about it too. I do understand like sometimes like if it's the random person, yeah, it's intrusive, but I think most people are just curious and they just want to know. It just as a person, a disabled person, you just get tired of explaining it every single time. So like if you don't want to explain it and they think you're rude and it's like, no, I'm not rude. I'm just tired of doing it. They don't think of
Yeah,
that. They don't think that you explain it all the time. So like, I mean, it's up to you. I think after a while they get tired of it and they'll be like, oh,
yeah.
she's my daughter, Jordan. I, I hate that I hate that it's the name Jordan because I keep wanting to call her Jordan all the time, and it's not Jordan, it's Hailey.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, I think that like it's also you know, when I also introduce people, I'm like, this is Haley, and then like I talk about what she likes. She loves Cocomelon. Literally everyone that knows her knows she loves Cocomelon. She is like the happiest girl, and like she has Jordan syndrome, but like that's not what defines her, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're trying to say is that like I think that like society needs to start like you wouldn't just go up to someone and be like oh, what's your height? What's your weight? You know what I mean? I mean, maybe
Hmm.
someone would, but like, I think that that's so important that like, that's not all, Haley is, and that's not all like anyone is.
I think to me, I think like the best approach to do it, like you don't have to explain the disease, but you can just explain like what is important if they're wanting to interact. So like you can say like, oh, like she doesn't speak, or like she had different, I don't know, awareness issues or something, something that will help bridge the gap of communication, I guess. I think that's the best way. You don't have to explain their whole life story, like, oh, she was diagnosed with
Right.
this, and like seizure, and like watch a 20-minute video of her, please, before you interact.
Yeah.
I did be like, it's like, hey, she can't speak. I mean, I don't know, but let's say she can't speak, just like that, or like talk in small sentences, or something that will help bridge the gap if it's
Right.
necessary. Like, I don't, I think some people go into too much of like I know like I'm a disability advocate, but I'm like more of a realistic disability advocate. Because some people get too like, oh, I have this disease, I have to shout it to the world, and I'm like, I think most people don't really care too much. I think it's more like, hey, the expert, just show who you are as a
Hmm.
person. Like you're Michelle, like you're, I don't know, you like, I'm sure you hate Cocomelon because
I
for obvious
mean,
reasons. Like, but yeah, like you're still a person. Like you don't say like I'm a rare disease mom. Like you're Michelle. You're a woman. You're a mom. You're just more than
right.
that. And I think people that get lost in that, it's like you have yourself. Like you don't want to limit yourself to it. So I
I
think just
agree.
they're like, hey, yeah, this is Haley, and I don't know, like she talking small sentences, but just like most people wouldn't really care. And like sometimes I do it to my like when I explain my disease, I'll make up stories. I'll be like, oh, I didn't wear, like, sometimes kids will come up to me and I'll be like, oh, I didn't wear my seatbelt when I was younger and I get into this horrible crash. And now they're wearing the seatbelt probably for the rest of their life, just not wanting to be how I am, even though it's not true. But like, yeah, like,
I think
just have fun with it too a
I
little
think
bit.
that just like for me with like what you're saying, like I think I found people that like really truly get to know Haley for Haley. I
Mm-hmm.
really hold on to those people. Like she started babbling recently, and it's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Like, and she's really trying to say
Okay.
things. And I was on a walk with someone the other day, and we were talking, and Haley was in the stroller, and Haley started babbling. My friend stopped mid sentence, and she had a conversation back and forth with Haley. Like, and to me, it was just so beautiful
Okay.
and so wonderful because it really made me feel like Haley's loved, and she is trying to say something, and she has things she wants to say, and just to see that people do
Mm-hmm.
value her as Haley, and not just a
Mm-hmm.
disability. I think that that's really essential, in our society.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say when you're not the parent and such, and like you have all these choices that even if you say it out loud, it wouldn't equate to what you're actually feeling, and just like the invisible stress that you have that words can never explain. Then, like, yeah, I do agree that you talking to other Jordan syndrome people do help you a lot and such, and yeah, the community is great enough.
Yeah.
It's exhausting to having to explain your her disability to a new person, where I'm sure it felt really, really good when you went to the conference and you didn't have to explain anything. Like, hey, here's Hailey. Like, hey, let's, I don't know, have lunch or something, or let's just have fun together. Like you skip all like the bullshit part in a way. Like you're able to actually form a relationship versus, oh, here's like a 20-minute presentation, and like,
Right.
please stay here after the 20 minutes. Don't be freaked out. Like here you'd have like, I feel like, I don't know how good friends of you are with Lexi, but I feel like you guys will get along really well.
Yeah, Lexi is amazing. She actually was here a few months ago, and she hung out with my kids and my husband and me, and I adore Lexi. So
Yeah, she's super awesome.
she's really
Yeah, I just feel like you would have a good relationship together. I see a lot of similarities in that.
oh well. I feel honored that you said that because I love her, and I look up to her and I admire her for so many things. She's changing the world, and she's going to make a big difference for a lot of people. So love her.
She's dedicated. No, but yeah, well, on our podcast, like her brother passed away, and one of the questions I asked her was, "Do you think it was kind of a blessing that he passed away because, she's very protective of him and wanted to be in his life and stuff, and as great as it is, sometimes it can be a little toxic because you can't spread your wings out because you want to be close to them." So I just asked her like, "Is it kind of a blessing that he did pass away because now you're not anchored by something. Now you can like spread your wings and like she wants to become a doctor and stuff." I feel like given her experience, she's able to spread her wings more, and I think actually do more good for the Jordan syndrome community because now she can help others because she seems to be really dedicated to Jordan syndrome, probably for the rest of her life,
Yeah,
just to help in any way possible.
she's a special girl. She for me brings a lot of love and light, and she gives me a lot of hope. And I'm so like fortunate that I got to meet her last summer at the conference. We just clicked right away, and she's just such a good girl. So yeah, she's amazing.
So before I take the mic away from you, is there anything you want to say? Promote any words of wisdom, the winning lottery
Oh,
numbers? The mic is
well,
all
if you know
yours.
the winning lottery number, hook me up.
I'm not sharing. Ah.
um, I appreciate, you having me on your podcast. You're awesome, and I appreciate you giving me
Talk
space.
about yourself. I'm good. Talk about yourself.
I don't know. I hope that people continue to hear about, my daughter as Haley and how amazing she is, but I also hope that more awareness and, the world just becomes more accepting and understanding. And, like you said, I might tell someone about Haley and maybe they'll forget, a few minutes later, but I hope they don't. And I hope that the world is ready to remember and to know that, the disabled community isn't going away, and remember that we're part of this world too, and that there's enough room for everyone in this world. So